Suddenly, the walls of Jericho collapsed, and the Israelites charged. I almost said changed. The Israelites charged straight into the town and captured it. What's up, cool people? My name's Matt. Welcome back to our Bible study. Alright. Time to read through and study Joshua chapter 6. So, the Israelites crossed the Jordan River. The younger generation, which was basically all the men, were then circumcised because they hadn't been previously, possibly because of the rebelliousness of their fathers. And then took some time to heal from that, had a Passover feast in the land of Canaan, using the crops from the land of Canaan, so they didn't have to rely on the manna from God for their food anymore. And then there was a interesting little interaction with a self-described commander of the Lord's army, who said he was neither for nor against the Israelites, but Joshua, wanting to pay respect as a representative of the Lord, the God he worships, bowed down and essentially, gave him that level of respect and said that he would do whatever this commander wanted. And I forget what the last little bit of that was. Oh, that's right. He was, The commander said, "Take off your sandals, for you're standing on holy ground." Reminiscent of Moses in the burning bush. Anyway, okay. And that last bit happened, I think, as they were getting close to Jericho. So now that they're right near Jericho, we read what happens in chapter 6 here. So here we go. Now the gates of Jericho were tightly shut because the people were afraid of the Israelites. No one was allowed to go out or in. I almost said in or out, but that's normally you would read it in or out, not the way that it's phrased here, but whatever. Details. But the Lord said to Joshua, "I have given you Jericho, its king, and all its strong warriors. You and your fighting men should march around the town once a day for 6 days. 7 priests will walk ahead of the ark, each carrying a ram's horn. On the 7th day, you are to march around the town 7 times, with the priests blowing the horns. When you hear the priests give one long blast on the ram's horns, have all the people shout as loud as they can. Then the walls of the town will collapse, and the people can charge straight into the town." So, as we read before, people of Jericho were afraid of the Israelites, so they just closed up shop, said, "Nope, nobody's getting in or out. We're not taking any chances with this. We're going to try whatever we can to keep ourselves safe from these people who have already conquered other kings and, been the beneficiaries, I guess, is more accurate, been the beneficiaries of these, miraculous things that happened before. So, since everything was closed up in Jericho, God tells the people to march around the city a bunch of times. 13 in total, when you think about it. And then they'll blow horns and shout, and the walls will tumble down, and then they'll be able to charge into the city and conquer it then, basically. Don't have any other thoughts on that section of verses, so let's keep reading. Verse 6. So Joshua called together the priests and said, "Take up the ark of the Lord's covenant, and assign 7 priests to walk in front of it, each carrying a ram's horn." Then he gave orders to the people, "March around the town, and the armed men will lead the way in front of the ark of the Lord. So I guess it would have been like the armies of Israel in front, then the priests with the Ark of the Covenant, then everybody else behind. At least that's what I'm implying based on the wording there. Otherwise, just following God's instructions. Okay, verse 8. After Joshua spoke to the people, the 7 priests with the ram's horns started marching in the presence of the Lord, blowing the horns as they marched. And the ark of the Lord's covenant followed behind them. Some of the armed men marched in front of the priests with the horns, and some behind the ark, with the priests continually blowing the horns. Do not shout, do not even talk, Joshua commanded. Not a single word from any of you until I tell you to shout. Then shout. So the ark of the Lord was carried around the town once that day, and then everyone returned to spend the night in the camp. God didn't technically say that the people couldn't say anything as this all was going on. That might have been added by Joshua, but there's nothing saying that exactly hurt the situation either. And there was also some clarification on the order of the people marching around. Alrighty. Moving on to verse 12. I'm pretty sure that's where we're at. Joshua got up early the next morning, and the priests again carried the ark of the Lord. The 7 priests with the ram's horns marched in front of the ark of the Lord, blowing their horns. Again, the armed men marched both in front of the priests with the horns and behind the ark of the Lord. All this time, the priests were blowing their horns. On the second day, they again marched around the town once and returned to the camp. They followed this pattern for 6 days. I'm glad that sentence is in there and it's not just giving us the same thing every single day for the first 6 days. Like, if it happened exactly the same, I don't think we necessarily need to read that it all happened exactly the same. Although, that has happened in the Bible previously, or stuff like that. So, wouldn't put it out of the realm of possibility, but I'm glad it didn't do that. So, more of the same stuff on day 2. Actually, okay, side note, I kind of jokingly, well, somewhat jokingly, but also, like, somewhat seriously made reference to the whole walking around Jericho thing at one point. Where I work, they were doing some renovations and stuff, and there were some things that were blocked off by, like, kind of makeshift plywood wall or something like that. And after, a couple of weeks or even longer of that being up, some of my coworkers around me got a little tired of that being in the way. Were wishing that would be gone, and I kind of said, well, hey, maybe we should, walk around it 7 times and shout really loud. So yeah, that was my. We didn't ever actually end up doing that, but I saw it as an opportunity to slip in a Bible reference, even among some non-Christians that I worked with. So I can't help it. It comes through sometimes. Half of my brain is references, I think. Anyway. Alright. Enough tangents on that kind of stuff. Okay. Verse 15. On the 7th day, the Israelites got up at dawn and marched around the town as they had done before. But this time they went around the town 7 times. 7th time around, as the priests sounded the long blast on their horns, Joshua commanded the people, "Shout, for the Lord has given you the town. Jericho and everything in it must be completely destroyed as an offering to the Lord. Only Rahab the prostitute and the others in her house will be spared, for she protected our spies." So, flashing back to Rahab and, her helping the spies out earlier when they were just scouting things out. That's where we got the revelation that the people of Jericho were afraid of the Israelites in the first place. And I do wonder if the people were really not saying a word the whole week of walking around, probably would have made them that much more antsy, and enthusiastic about the shouting when that came around. So maybe Joshua was being a bit of a, smart thinker there, telling everybody to be quiet, even though the Lord didn't directly say they had to do that. Footnote there, destroyed, is probably going to say something we've seen before, but for those of you who haven't seen it in previous streams of mine, the Hebrew term used here refers to the complete consecration of things or people to the Lord, either by destroying them or by giving them as an offering. So, while it could be, yes, actually physically just destroyed, dead, gone, broken into pieces, whatever the thing in question might happen to be, it might not necessarily have meant everything actually wound up being completely destroyed and just a giant pile of rubble or whatever. Okay. On to verse 18. Joshua still speaking here, presumably. "Do not take any of the things set apart for destruction, or you yourselves will be completely destroyed, and you will bring trouble on the camp of Israel. Everything made from silver, gold, bronze, or iron is sacred to the Lord and must be brought into his treasury." Okay, so maybe that's where some of the things it's talking about, the consecration of them, like having those things given as an offering instead of those things being destroyed. Partially because those would be kind of hard to destroy outright. Like, stone, yeah, maybe. Especially, using metal tools and whatnot. But other metals, not so hard to break down and destroy. And those were probably just going to be then, melted down and then shaped into other tools or whatever for some, some purpose relative to worshiping God maybe, or I don't know, something to that effect. Anyway. But aside from all those metals and stuff, everything else was supposed to be destroyed. But it's the same word as up here, so maybe, I don't know. Details. Okay, verse 20. "When the people heard the sound of the ram's horns, they shouted as loud as they could. Suddenly the walls of Jericho collapsed, and the Israelites charged. I almost said changed. The Israelites charged straight into the town and captured it. They completely destroyed everything in it with their swords, men and women, young and old, cattle, sheep, goats, and donkeys. Meanwhile, Joshua said to the 2 spies, 'Keep your promise. Go to the prostitute's house and bring her out along with her family.' Okay, so loud shout, walls come down, they charge in, and completely take over the town. Okay, verse 23. The men who had been spies went in and brought out Rahab, her father, mother, brothers, and all the other relatives who were with her. They moved her whole family to a safe place near the camp of Israel. Then the Israelites burned the town and everything in it. Only the things made from from silver, gold, bronze, or iron were kept for the treasury of the Lord's house. So Joshua spared Rahab the prostitute and her relatives who were with her in the house, because she had hidden the spies Joshua sent to Jericho. And she lives among the Israelites to this day. Not to the current modern day, obviously, but to the day in which this would have been written. Which means this had to have been written not terribly long after all these things happened. Maybe a little while after, but shortly enough afterwards that Rahab was still alive. So yeah. Israelites burned the town and everything in it. Yeah, that's not necessarily going to destroy all the metals that were discussed. So, again, I say, maybe that was a reason why those things were kept and just put in the treasury in this case. Probably for later use. Okay. Verse 26, let's wrap this thing up. At that time, Joshua invoked this curse. May the curse of the Lord fall on anyone who tries to rebuild the town of Jericho. At the cost of his firstborn son, he will lay its foundation. At the cost of his youngest son, he will set up its gates. So the Lord was with Joshua, and his reputation spread throughout the land. Joshua being, the leader of the people, his reputation probably spreading because of what happened, these events spreading to the, surrounding area. And Joshua basically says, cursed be anyone who tries to remake this town, because we've destroyed it. It's not meant, God doesn't want it here, so it's almost more, well, not more, but it's as much like a warning as it is a curse, because if they went and did that and rebuilt Jericho, God didn't want that town to exist. So, people going against God's wishes tends to not result in good things. But anyway, okay, that does it for Joshua 6. Okay, so Jericho has been destroyed. Walls brought down to the ground. Basically everything else set on fire, it seems. And, other than, of course, Rahab and her family, because, they wound up saving her because she helped the spies earlier and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, it just goes to show that even some things that might seem pretty weird in the moment can actually, work out for the better. As long as it's, following God's directions, or whatever you want to call that. Following God's guidance. But anyway, as always, like and share if you enjoyed the video. Subscribe to the channel and click the bell if you're on YouTube to get updates when I post new videos. If you're seeing this over on Rumble, give me a follow there. Either way, look down in the description to get info on other social media pages and how to find and follow those. And down below that, leave your comments with any thoughts you have. So that's going to do it for now. Hope you're all doing well. Hopefully I'll see you soon for another video. But whatever the case is, till next time, stay cool, people.